Hi, and welcome to my guide all about formations in Romancing Saga Re-Universe. Like my other guides, I'm going to attempt to be comprehensive here, but if you do end up with questions, feel free to put them in the comments and I'll try and get back to you. Now, let's first answer the question of what are formations in this game. And I'm going to show you that by going into an example party of mine. When you are on the party screen here, the section down at the bottom is where you select your formation. Right now I have the Rainbow Rangers formation selected. If you press the Change Formation button, you can rearrange where your characters are situated in your formation, as well as choose a different formation entirely. If you look at the description for this inverse sigmoid, for example, it'll give you a general idea of what it is, but what you really want to look at is the details behind this, and you can do that by pressing on the little eye circle in the top right of the description. So here's where the real meat of it is. It tells you exactly for each position in this formation what the buffs and debuffs are. And this also leads into why you should care about formations in this game. Using this formation as an example, let's look at number 3 here, spot number 3. Just by placing a character in that spot, both their dex and their intelligence stats are increased by 25%, which is, needless to say, a significant boost. And some formations even go as high as 50% boost. And so you can imagine that if you put a character in a 50% boost to their main damaging stat, what a difference that'll make in battle. So that's the kind of simple summary of why you should care about formations. They can really just act to maximize the output of your team. So it also goes without saying that choosing the right formation for your team is going to go a long way to increasing your success. On that note, let's go to Rainbow Rangers here as an example. If you look at the different buffs and debuffs for this formation, they each buff a different stat by 50%. Now, the reason I'm using this as an example is you can't really just use one formation all the time, or you can, but if you want to min-max your performance, you really want to match the formation to the team and vice versa. So why might you do it the other way? That is, why might you try and match the team to a formation? The reason being that some of these formations, this is a great example, are very strong. Rainbow Rangers giving 50% to a primary stat makes it one of the best formations in the game, and one of the only ways you can get 50% to some of these stats. So it makes a whole lot of sense to, in some cases, build your team around the requirements for this formation. That means having a strength user, a dex user, agility, hint, and so on. It doesn't mean that you have to match characters to these stats to use it, but you're going to get the most out of this if you do. Let me go back to my list here. This isn't all of the formations in the game, but it's nearly all of them. And some are better than others, which I'll get into at the end of this video, which ones are generally going to be the most useful. But especially if you're starting out, you're not going to have all of these. So just get in the habit of looking at new formations when you earn them and examining the details to see which ones are actually going to work for you and your team. Oh, and by the way, when you start the game, it starts with free-for-all. There's really no reason to stick with this particular formation because, as you can see, it doesn't give you any buffs whatsoever. So you're always better off pretty much using a different formation unless you just haven't unlocked a lot of them yet and the other ones might be detrimental to you. So yeah, Again, don't ignore formations. They're very important in this game. You definitely want to use them. Now, let's answer the question of where do you get formations? Early on, when you're starting out the game, some formations are awarded simply from completing certain missions, as I recall. I don't recall exactly what those missions were. I think they were just completing certain story quests, though. Things like that, things that you're going to want to complete anyway for different reasons. You do those and you'll unlock a lot of formations early on. That's not how you unlock all of the formations, though. The best formations in the game, for the most part, are going to come from the formation exchange shop. So if I open up my exchange shops and come down here to formation, here's where you'll find, like I said, most of the best ones. Now I've already purchased most of them, which is why there's only 3 here right now. But here's where you want to go to get some of the most popular ones. Now these cost these formation coins, which is just little gold currency here. They all cost 33 apiece. So now I want to show you where you earn those coins. Here we go. Secret training slash. So these, as you can see, these awarded formation medals. And at some point, you progress in the story, and at some point you'll unlock this Bartholomew's training quest. Don't sleep on these when you unlock them. Try and complete as many as you can, because you really are going to benefit from those formation coins. And I'm looking at these. There's varying levels of difficulty for these quests. So again, even if you're just starting out, even if you don't have a particularly strong team, I'd recommend you try these quests and do as many that you can complete. And then as you get stronger, just return and complete the ones you haven't yet completed to get additional formation coins. Now some of these other battles that they've added, I haven't done this one yet, for example, also award formation coins. So I'll have to do these eventually to get the rest of my formations. But again, just to recap, if you come here to event, go to attacks, just check the different attacks that you have available, and they will tell you in the rewards if they give these formation medals. So that's how you get them, and again, you can spend them in the exchange shop. Now let's try and answer the question of which formations should you prioritize or purchase first. And I'm going to start with the one that I showcased earlier, which was Rainbow Rangers. I mentioned this is one of the best ones, and I stand by that. A 50% increase to a damaging stat is game-changing. If you put your nukers into the appropriate formations here, you're really going to feel a difference. So that's why this is one of the most used formations there are. And to show you a comparison, 50% is a big deal, because if we go back to one of these sigmoids, for example, sigmoid's a good formation, but it only boosts stats by 25%. In the case of sigmoid here, it's actually boosting 2 stats by 25%, so you might call that a fair trade-off. But when it comes to simply maximizing your damage, you're not going to get a benefit from boosting 2 different stats. You usually just want to boost whatever your primary damage stat is. In this case, since we're looking at this, why might you want to boost agility? Boosting agility is going to help these characters act faster. So Sigmoid's a good example of one that can help you control the turn order in battle. So if it's important for you to have certain characters act first, you might want to go with Sigmoid and put them in one of these agility boosting stats. But again, so the ones I'd recommend first, Rainbow Rangers, for sure, is one I use most of the time. It's probably my default, I would say. Anima Stream is another really good one. This one, let's look at the details here. This is great for a caster base team. Increased int agility by 25%, and spots 3 and 4 increase int by a whopping 50%. So if you have a caster heavy team, this formation is amazing. I mean, it's going to boost their damage like crazy. Only downside is formation number 5 here just gets a massive debuff to agility. So here you just put a carry or maybe your healer or something like that. Other ones that are good, Dragoon Strike is good for boosting strength. If you have a strength dominated team, strength users, you know, sword, spear, blunt type users, you know, they can all benefit from strength. This is kind of, if you will, the equivalent of Anima Stream, but for physical damage dealers. Deadly Pierce is great if you have a mixture of strength and dex users. This is kind of the go-to for that. It's best for dex users. As you can see, spots 2 and 3 boost dex by 50%. So if you're using a dex heavy team, this is the default. But like I said, it's also good for mixing both strength and dex users, since there's not really any other formation that's good for both at the same time. These two sigmoid forms, I already showed you the one. Here's the other. So the difference between the two is one of them boosts strength and intelligence, and the other one boosts dex and intelligence. Again, the primary use of these is going to be if you want to control turn order because of the agility increase that it gives. So bear that in mind. Probably the other most used is going to be this Rapid Stream. And I don't recall if this came from the formation shop or not. It might not have, but this is, regardless, one of the better formations because it increases agility by 50% for your entire party. The reason this is good is because there are certain strategies, boss strategies in particular, wherein you boost your party's agilities to a certain point where the boss can't hit you because agility increases your evasion. So this is the formation that you're always going to use when using that particular strategy. So that's why that one's good. The last one I'll recommend is one that I actually haven't purchased yet, which is the Tiger Shark formation. So let's go back to the shop to take a look at that one. Okay, so Tiger Shark. Tiger Shark is popular primarily because of slot number 1 here. If you look at slot number 1, it really makes whoever's there kind of a Superman. Strength, Dex, and Will all increase by 50%, but it makes them much more likely to be targeted by enemies. Now, that latter part, making them draw aggro, is the reason people use this formation most often. You put someone there who has some kind of evade or parry type ability, and it can really draw a lot of heat off of your team. Also because slots 2, 3, 4, and 5 all have decreased aggro. As you can see, you're less likely to be targeted by enemies and much less likely to be targeted by enemies. Slots 4 and 5 also increase damage stats by 25%, so all in all, a pretty useful formation. The only reason I haven't purchased it is because I haven't farmed the coins for it yet, but I'm sure that I definitely will want it at some point. And before I end, since we recently got a new formation added, this Tiger's Den, let's quickly talk about this. This is a purely defensive formation. As you can see, for all slots, it increases will by 25%, and it has this unique what's called pre-action defense boost. If you look at this, it says it grants a defense boost, very large effect, before an action is made. I believe very large effect means a 20% defense boost. And the fact that it's a pre-action defense boost means that you get this buff before any actions are taken. So before the boss attacks you with this formation, you'll have a 20% damage reduction on turn 1. This is useful, presumably. I haven't used it yet, but I can imagine this being useful for teams that require a setup. So these are primarily going to be buffing and debuffing teams. So either you need to survive the first few rounds so you can debuff the boss adequately, or you need to survive so you can buff your team adequately using characters like Matriarch or Narwhal's Daughter. So this is also most likely going to be a highly useful formation later on down the line when we get some of the more difficult boss fights. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to say about formations. Again, don't ignore them. They're an incredibly important part of this game. And if you have any questions, like I said, go ahead and leave them in the comments. Thanks very much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.